Good morning, traders. I'm Emily Advani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Wednesday, May 21st. Today's move follow a down day on Wall Street yesterday after all three major indices closed regular trading in the red. The S&P 500 snapped its six-day winning run and gave up 23 points or 0.39%. The Dow dropped 114 points or just more than 0.25%. The Nasdaq wobbled throughout the session and ultimately shed 72 points or 0.38%. Bill, let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Yes, good morning, Emily. I'm watching the S&Ps. We're down 0.61%. We were down more, so this is actually a little bit better. It's kind of coming back a little bit. But there are news reports out there that indicate Israel is planning to launch a strike against Iran, preparing, not planning. I mean, just there's a little bit of a difference there. They're doing some exercise drills apparently, and that's that's a little bit of a concern. But, in March, President Trump gave Iran a 60-day deadline to reach a deal and with on its nuclear enrichment. And that date has passed, so it's a little bit cautionary. And we got to turn our attention to the House and the House Republicans. They appear close to passing that reconciliation bill. Now, it's going to head to the Senate next, and then the Senate is likely going to make changes. If it passes both the House and the Senate, I got to tell you, I think it's a negative for the markets because that's going to increase the deficit, and the market is focused on the debt these days. Yesterday, something interesting happened because President Trump unveiled a missile defense plan. And you look at shares of LHX, Larry Henry X-ray, stocks up 4.77% this morning. Interesting. Medtronic, ticker MTD, they're planning to separate their diabetes business into a standalone company. Take-Two Interactive, they announced a $1 billion stock offering. Stock's down 4.16% this morning on that offering news. Yeah, that's probably not worth it. In terms of earnings news, BIDU, Lowe's, Keysight Technologies, they're all higher after their earnings announcements. After the bell today, you get Snowflake, Zoom, and Urban Outfitters. And then tomorrow morning, you got ADI, BJ, and RL, Ralph Lauren, all set to report. And you're looking overseas, you're looking at the markets overseas, and you're looking at the DAX. The DAX is actually, it's only down 0.1%. It was down more. It was down 0.6%. Now it's only down 0.1%. EU-US trade talks appear to have slowed, a little cautionary. The FTSE has turned higher. It's higher by 0.03%, but it was lower. The UK annual inflation actually rose. It came in hot at plus 3.5%, which was above the expectations of a reading of 3.3%. In Paris, the CAC is down 0.58%. We're seeing weakness in luxury stocks. They're having negative action, which is pulling that index lower. Looking last night in Asia, and we're seeing what happened with the Asian markets. And listen, you got to start off with Tokyo in Japan. The market fell 0.61%. That's 231 points. It's about the export data because April exports slowed to a gain of plus 0.2%. In U.S. Exports to the U.S. did drop. Exports to the EU did drop. So it was other Asian nations that were making up for the increase. But it's due to tariffs and a strengthening yen. But I will say trade talks, Japan and U.S. trade talks are scheduled to resume on Friday, which is positive. But we'll see what happens with the outcome of those talks. Hong Kong finished with a gain of 0.262%. Shanghai finished with a gain of 0.21%. In Hong Kong, you saw gains in consumer tech and property stocks. In China, there was outperformance in mining and battery stocks. So there was something positive happening in Asia last night. Then we're turning to our attention to oil. Oil is all about the Iran-Israel situation right now. You got both contracts trading up about 1%. WTI is at $62.72. Brent's at $66.01. I think this is more, volatility than actual like something's going to happen. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any direct confrontation uh, between Israel and Iran in the very near future. So those gains will probably wane off a little bit. And then you have the stockpile data. The API, they released their stockpile estimates last night. And they showed a build of 2.5 billion barrels, which is bearish for oil prices. So today you get the EIA data coming out. We'll have to wait and see if that coincides and if that is also a build in stockpiles. But that's what I have for you in terms of morning market update, Emily.
Along with those geopolitical and political headlines, Bill, as you pointed out, there's some economic reports to keep track of today, and there are a number of earnings along with other corporate news, and we're going to get through all of it on today's show so that we understand all the details that may be affecting the trading day today. We will start with earnings action, a number of companies that came out, some interesting ones to note, and some big names to look ahead to. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of earnings action?
We're talking Keys, Keys, Kilo, Edward, Yellow Sand, Keysight Technologies. They beat by 5 cents and they did it on higher revenue. It stock's up 5.08%. Talking Palo Alto Networks, PANW, Paul Apple, Nancy William. They beat by 3 cents on higher revenue. The report wasn't bad. Palo Alto Networks is trading lower by 4.87%, though. Lowe's, ticker LOW, they beat by 4 cents, and they did that on higher revenue. You look at the stock this morning, it's trading up 1.84%. BIDU, ticker BIDU, their revenue grew 7% year over year. Good report. Stock's up 3.47%. So that's all positive. Then we're looking ahead to this afternoon. We have Snowflake, ticker SNOW. Their EPS is 22 cents. Expected move is 10.83%. Urban Outfitters, ticker URBN. Their EPS is 81 cents. Expected move is 9.95%. And Zoom Communications, ticker ZM, Zebra Michael, their EPS is $1.30. Expected move is 8.74% when they release this afternoon, Emily.
Bill, you may just have given us a hint on how your pick of the day yesterday went. Baidu was your pick of the day. The stock is up this morning. We will do a check-in on that pick by the end of the show, so stick with us through that. Now we're going to get to the day's economic events. You did give us a note about that EIA oil stockpiles report, but a couple of other things worth watching. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of the day's economic events?
At 10 a.m., we get the Atlanta Fed business inflation expectations. At 10:30, you get the oil stockpiles report. In terms of Fed speak at noon, we're going to hear from Richmond Fed Bank President Thomas Barkin. He will be speaking. Yesterday we heard from a couple of Fed officials, like Raphael Bostic of the Atlanta Fed. He highlighted that further instability in the Treasury market would add to economic uncertainty, prompting the Fed to delay policy changes and seeks greater clarity. This is kind of a consistent theme. San Francisco Fed Bank President Mary Daly, Cleveland Fed Bank President Beth Hammack, they also described a cautious approach shaped by uncertainty, not urgency. And they want to stay in the center position and be able to move depending on what happens with the economic data. So it really is still a wait and see. As the data they're waiting for is more data on the trade policy. I mean, I know President Trump is saying, reduce interest rates now. Well, he wants that done because that would mask, the impact of the tariff situation that is causing the concern for the Fed officials, because they know that these tariffs are going to create inflation or cause inflation to rise, and we're going to have higher interest rates, and inflation is going to be upticking due to these tariffs and the budget if passed. So the Fed officials are not stupid; they're pretty smart, a group of people, and pay attention to them. But that's what I have for you in terms of a morning market economic update, Emily.
Your insights there, Bill, are just proof in the pudding that using your newsware really helps you gain good overview of what is happening in the markets, being able to look ahead to the Fed speak that's coming today, while also, being able to get that big picture overview of the other comments that came out yesterday is important. You're also keeping track of those economic events using your NewsWare along with those earnings announcements, and you're still keeping track of more market moving information, things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, catalyst calls. You're able to create an alert to group your stocks together, like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
Just doing a quick data check. I'm looking at my Dow stocks. I got 4 higher and 26 lower. I'm looking at my FANG stocks. I'm seeing mixed activity. Google's trading a little higher. Tesla's trading a little higher. The other ones are trading lower. We're looking at some news behind the tape, and we're looking at Apple. Apple to open AI models to third-party developers. That could be something. We'll have to see. Google, their Waymo division, self-driving cars. Apparently, they reached 10 million robo-taxi trips. That doubled in 5 months. So that's very positive. I could see that being a big positive of these robo-taxis for Google. Netflix, there's a journal article out there talking about how the streaming revolution has finally hit an era of profitability. That's true. Tesla shares are trading higher today. They're up about 0.4%. But their CFO received $139 million pay package last year. That eclipses the $86 million record that was set by Nikola. And that was set before it filed for bankruptcy. I'm not saying Tesla's going to be filing for bankruptcy. That's unlikely, but CFOs typically don't get paid that kind of money, and CEOs do, but CFOs, interesting. In terms of Dow Jones 30 stocks, Microsoft OpenAI primary data center supplier Crusoe secures 11.6 billion in new funding. That's positive. Apple Fortnite has officially returned to the U.S. Apple's App Store after being gone for 5 years. There's a story out there on Disney. Leo and Stitch transforms into one of Disney's top franchises. Wow, that's interesting. In terms of guidance news, Keysight Technologies, Keys, ticker KEYS, they see Q3 EPS coming in $1.63 to $1.69. Now, the street estimates is $1.69, so that's on the high end. It's a little bit cautionary. Palo Alto Networks, on the other hand, they see Q4 adjusted EPS coming in 87 cents to 89 cents, and the street estimate is 87 cents. That's an uptick. That's why I said I don't dislike the Palo Alto report. In terms of shareholders meeting, Northrop Grumman, ticker NOC, they're having a shareholders meeting today at 8 a.m. United Airlines, ticker UAL, they're having a shareholders meeting at 9 a.m. And Amazon.com, they're having a shareholders meeting today at noon Eastern time. These are all virtual. In terms of buyback news, Wix, Wix.com increased their share repurchase agreement by $200 million. In terms of catalyst calls, Coherent, ticker COHR, they were placed on a positive catalyst watch by JP Morgan. Confluent, ticker CFLT, Charlie, Frank, Larry, Tom. Citibank opened up a 90-day positive catalyst watch on the stock. That's what I have for you in terms of news in the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, what is your pick of the day today?
Got to go with ADI, Advanced Analog Devices. Apple, David, India. Earnings are out tomorrow morning, and it's really best to breed. EPS is $1.69. Expected move is 5.48%. You're looking at Tuesday's call volume. 2,836 calls traded against 2,318 puts. That's positive. Open interest is much more positive. 54,600 versus 32,200. That's much better. I mean, brokers are leaning positive on the stock. That's good. Listen, in terms of entry price, if I can get in at low 222, or maybe 221.80 to 222.05, something like that, I think that would be a good entry point. And I think that the stock could benefit from there. We're going to see some weakness at the open, so you got to be cautionary, but we could see this thing start to turn around as they get closer to earnings, because the expectations are that was about semiconductor sales were horrible back in April, but they've since turned because Trump did remove some of those tariffs, so that's a positive. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did turn out and see a gain on ADI. So that's my pick of the day. Advanced analog devices today, ticker ADI, Emily.
ADI, it is today, Bill, on that earnings play, looking for that specific entry point. That is a strategy I've used for a number of plays that have worked out. So we'll see if that one works out. And in just a moment, we will see if yesterday's pick of the day, you were able to get a gain there. But ahead of that, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, what do we see? There's a lot of news about how NVIDIA CEO is, bashing Trump, but he's also praising him and, his move to scrap some of the AI export curbs. So, he's 50-50 on it. He's not all negative. Target cut its annual forecast as tariff pressures mount. They're also having some, weakness in store traffic, I see. Target CEO says progress on inventory shrink a bright spot in Q1. Bank of England could pause interest rate cuts at that strong UK inflation data that came out this morning. SMCI, super microcomputer to expand production capacity as AI demand accelerates. United Healthcare, stock's down, almost 4% this morning, 3.76%. Had a big rally last 2 days. NVIDIA CEO calls Biden era AI curbs a failure with China. EU follows Trump's lead to lift economic sanctions on Syria. Medtronic said to separate its diabetes business into a standalone company. That's interesting. Thermo Fisher TMO, they're holding a virtual shareholders meeting today at 8:30 a.m. Universal's new Epic Universe Park, it's really challenging at Disney in Florida. Kraft Heinz, KFC, the company said it's looking at strategic transactions as demand for its pricier snacks and ready-to-eat meals weakens in an uncertain economic environment. Tesla, the electronic vehicle maker, is set to begin testing of its long-promised robo-taxi services on schedule in Austin, Texas by the end of June. That's all I'm seeing this morning, Emily.
Okay, Bill, before we get to trading on this Wednesday, let's do that check-in on yesterday's pick of the day. We mentioned it earlier in the show was BIDU. You did tell us that they did release earnings, and the company's revenue rose in Q1. This accounted because of the robust AI business. The online marketing revenue did fall 6% from a year ago, but their core business jumped 40% to $1.3 billion, and that was, again, attributed to the AI cloud division. Now, yesterday, just as a note, when it comes to Chinese companies, Republicans are asking the SEC to consider delisting Chinese companies, but that isn't hurting the stock this morning after that positive report. You did tell us it is up, but how did your call work out?
Worked out great. I mean, listen, the stock opened up at $89.41 and fell down to $89.04. Remember, I said low 89 area. And then it rallied up. It rallied all the way up to 89.94. So 1% was kind of there right then. And then it closed at 89.34. And then, you look at the stock this morning after the earnings. Here it is, 92.11. It already hit a high of 92.64. It's over 2%. I mean, 3%. I mean, you look at it and you got to be, you got to realize that there's value in my earnings model because it really has been calling these earnings plays left and right. So yeah, BIDU, winner, winner, winner.
Absolutely value in your earnings model there because we have another win, and we will check in with you tomorrow, see if the strategy keeps working with today's analog devices pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Vani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.